your fire inhibitor is so safe you can literally drink it. It's made from grains and fruits.
Yes. The funny thing is it looks kind of like moonshine. In fact, it's so clear that mason jar full of the stuff. It's neutralized citric acid, which is in lots of grains and fruits and vegetables. And so I don't suggest drinking it. That is not part of the safety data sheet. That is not in anything I would ever want.
Welcome to another episode of Interviews with Experts. I'm Sumit, and today we are diving into a sector that is literally saving assets, wildlife prevention and fire protected building materials. Joining us is Wes Bolson, CEO of CitroTech. Wes has over 2 decades of experience scaling high growth tech from leading Ladera Tech to his current mission at CitroTech. So, Wes, welcome.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here with you today.
So, Wes, you have spent over 20 years scaling high growth tech, but your journey with fire protection seems almost personal. What was that one light bulb moment that shifted your focus specifically towards saving assets from wildfires?
Yeah, appreciate that question. I mean, my background, I'm a kid who came off of farming. I raised cattle and quarter horses in Southern Illinois and did engineering and Stanford Business School and all those things. But what I figured out was when you can be passionate about something, when I could mix a passion for helping people and making a difference with some skills I had. Wildfire, I mean, I had done some things in biofuels, I'd done some things in ag technology. Wildfire became something that was a cross of energy in the environment, doing things that are better for energy in the environment, mixed with bringing new technology. It's my passion in my career has been a lot about bringing breakthrough technology and innovation and commercializing that or bringing that into the world. And it's actually a very small industry. So some people, it's funny to say, to know a lot about a very small subject, and wildfire, fire prevention is a topic that isn't there's not 10 different companies. There's literally sometimes only been one company out there that has been doing things like the red fire retardant dropping out of the sky. And it's really an industry ripe for innovation. And that's something that I was able to be passionate about.
Okay, okay. So, in your recent interview, you have mentioned that your fire inhibitor is so safe you can literally drink it. It's made from grains and fruits.
Yes. The funny thing is it looks kind of like moonshine. In fact, it's so clear that mason jar full of the stuff. It's neutralized citric acid, which is in lots of grains and fruits and vegetables. And so I don't suggest drinking it. That is not part of the safety data sheet. That is not in anything I would ever want. But the funny part is you think about something that's so safe that the Environmental Protection Agency made CitroTech the first ever recognized fire retardant.
Oh, great.
So before we've had fire retardants that are going out, they were needed to stop fires from burning down communities, but they've never really been safe to repeatedly applying time after time on roadsides, under power lines, around homes. We needed something that was safe for pets, safe for the environment, safe for the kids to be out, but also safe for the environment and effective. And I think that is really where CitroTech comes in as the first ever and currently only EPA Safer Choice recognized product. And I think that's why this product, CitroTech, will become a dominant play in wildfire prevention and wildfire protection, as well as I'm sure we'll talk today about lumber, wood products, building materials. How do we make homes and build homes in a safer way that are also Class A fire rated? And I think that EPA Safer Choice is mostly for the environment, but I think the safety of the product as well as efficacy is something that's very important.
Right, right. So how does it feel to lead a chemical company, where the goal is to create products that are actually nutrient for the soil?
Yeah, I mean, potassium citrate, it's something that when you can have vegetation stay there and help it be rendered non-flammable, you're doing two things at once. One, the environment is able to keep that vegetation, preventing runoff and mudslides and problems with the soil and soil health. And so something that's important is prevent that vegetation from being on fire. About 80% of fires start adjacent to a roadside. We should be treating the
Right,
roadsides. We should be
right,
treating under the power lines where there's vegetation, but we can also do that in a way that's safe for the environment and keeps soil health there, which is really important.
right, right. So when you first looked at, the traditional borat-based wood treatments, what was the most glaring fatal flaw that convinced you there was a big, massive market opportunity for CitroTech?
Sure. When you look at traditional Class A fire rating, there's two things. One, they pressure treat it or they impregnate it, incise it. They cut into the board and then they push kind of scary things like borate or zinc borate or other things into that material. So one, by definition, you just weakened the wood. The wood, if you have to incise it, impregnate it, you have weakened the wood. Versus something like CitroTech, it actually soaks into the cellulosic fibers. And that's a really important aspect. If you had a safe product that was able to be applied to lumber, wood products, building materials, or even built into the manufacturing process, something like oriented stranding board, OSB board, where they make and they press it into OSB board. If you could make OSB board fire retardant treated wood, that is a game-changing, a really fundamentally shifting way that we could start using building materials that are both safe from a chemical side, but also it's ASTM E84 extended is a class that says, is this fire rated or not? Does this do its job in preventing that fire? And so what the light bulb that came on for me was, one, we can treat wood faster, easier,
Okay.
without weakening the wood. We can treat it in a way that it's not using hazardous or potentially hazardous chemicals that have been used for many, many years. So you bring a specialty chemical, you bring CitroTech, to the market, a fire retardant that is able to treat that wood, or even be in the future just designed in, built into the manufacturing of OSB board, plywood, other LVL, all these wood products will
Right,
start to become CitroTech treated, CitroTech inside as we go forward.
right, right. So Wes, if you had to describe CitroTech mission to a child living in a high fire risk zone, how would you explain the impact of your work on their future?
Hmm. Yeah, obviously I care a lot, as I said, about energy and the environment. So if I was explaining it to a child or to someone that cares deeply about the environment, which there are many, we need some good fire, to thin forest and to do things that are healthy. But what we need to do is also prevent the fires from starting where we know. If we know where fires are starting, we should be doing things proactively, preventatively. We should do things to make the world better, and from having those devastating fires that burn down homes and burn down communities. And CitroTech now has a product that, number one, you can build your home better. And everybody, I was an engineer, I was an electrical engineer. I didn't build as many things. I got to play with electronics. But if we could build better, if our wood could be better and Class A fire rated, we have communities that change that way. Number two, we prevent the fires from starting on roadsides, under power lines, along railroad lines. And then finally, what we want to do is let homeowners take control, and we have Citro safe systems. You could actually spray CitroTech out around your home.
Okay.
And the way that people have explained it, it's like an airbag. If
Mhm.
embers are blowing in from 1 or 2 miles away, you want to protect all that vegetation around your home. And within a matter of minutes, you could spray CitroTech. And one thing is, it's very important. It's good until it is physically washed off. So till a significant rainfall. So you don't have to keep spraying it like water. So a CitroSafe system, a CitroTech system is going to actually replace much of the water-based sprinkler systems that you can't be stealing away from the firefighting community. We would spray CitroTech and help render that vegetation non-flammable.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So let's talk about your recent partnership with Hexion. So why was Hexion, a giant in wood resins, the missing piece CitroTech needed to redefine global fire safety standards?
Thank you. Hexion, the Hexion CitroTech joint venture is an amazing 50-50 joint venture that is really bringing the best of the technology, the best of the intellectual property. There's a significant number of patents, 30 going on 40, granted patents around the whole portfolio that CitroTech has. And taking that technology and saying, how do we get this to market the fastest? Hexion already had relationships with every one of the major wood products companies globally. And so for CitroTech, even though we are a public company, even though we are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE American, we needed that strength, I would say, in integration, in manufacturing, distribution, the sales, really the strength, and I would say the global reputation that Hexion has. It's almost unparalleled for the trusted company that Hexion is to be able to deliver solutions. And so it was the perfect partnership of our technology plus their strength and their respected nature with all of the largest wood products companies globally. And so instead of me doing one partnership with one major wood company and them saying, oh, this is the best technology in the world, now we're going to tie it up, we're going to lock it up, we're going to be exclusive with just CitroTech. What it allows us to do is really deliver solutions across the industry and globally to more broadly bring a Class A fire rated solution to many of the wood products.
Right, right. So, you have spoken about moving away from after treatment toward built-in fire protection. So how difficult it is to convince traditional lumber manufacturers to change a production process that has been the same for decades?
That's a problem we have a lot of times is what we have always done, we try to keep doing. And I think that's where innovation and breakthrough like CitroTech comes in. What we could do is bring a product that we bring something that is easier. So, if you bring something that's significantly more expensive and harder and better for the environment, it doesn't have as much of an adoption. But when we bring something that is reducing some of the burden in sending lumber out to be pressure treated, that's weakened, that has zinc borates and other things and put into it, and that's actually a pretty laborious process. What if we could reduce that and have a product that's so good it gets into the cellulosic fibers, and you could do that as the product is being manufactured in OSB board, in plywood, and LVL, or you could even do it in the lumber yard. I mean, we could go out and have it sprayed onto or soak into wood and have that be Class A fire rated. So I think once you show someone, hey, it can be better, you can make it more affordable, you can make it more environmentally friendly, you can do it faster, it becomes a new standard. You say, well, why would I do this? Is how anything shifts. It's so compelling that people say we have to move here. And I think that's where we're moving towards, is the industry will say, if one big producer starts doing this, almost everyone needs to start moving there, because you can't do the old way anymore.
Right, right. So, Wes, without giving away the secret sauce, how does your solution manage to soak into wood fibers at the molecular level without destroying the very strength of the fiber?
Yeah, in fact, it's what's pretty wild is our partnership with Hexion. We've done a lot of testing. A lot of these other partners and big wood products companies have done, some of them going on almost a year worth of testing. So we're really not at the beginning. This joint venture between CitroTech and Hexion isn't like we hope there's a product that will work. We actually know there's a product that works, and now it's about commercializing it. With that, it's not only not breaking down the cellulosic fibers, you think about what something like a citric acid based product will do. It can actually strengthen the wood. It can provide additional benefits beyond just fire retardancy. And so you can look at strength, you can look at other aspects of the wood. So not only do you not weaken the wood, there's people testing it, say, could you strengthen OSB board, or could you have it have less swell, they call it. There's all these different characteristics that come into the manufacturing of a wood product like that. And so the secret sauce that you're asking, it is a really good question. How do you get a product that will soak in to become small enough to get into the cellulosic fibers and then form what looks like a crystalline structure? It forms a structure that in the presence of heat, it will carbonize or char and form that barrier that prevents fire from getting into and consuming that wood. I mean, you can hold a 2,000-degree torch, right on a piece of wood, and it will char the outside and almost form a barrier, a shield to keep that from burning through. So what we're looking at is a product that once it soaks in at the molecular level, and we do that through a couple of agents. There's actually a little bit of a trick in our formula, or otherwise everyone would do it, that allows that citric acid based tripotassium citrate and other things to soak into the cellulosic fibers. And the reason we can do that is there's obviously a lot of patents, I can tell you, those things so far, because it's interesting. No one had done this before, and now it's showing a tremendous opportunity.
Right, right. So you are the only long-term fire inhibitor with the EPA Safer Choice recognition. So in an industry often accused of greenwashing, how much does this scientific validation help in the boardroom during sales pitches?
Yeah, this is where the Environmental Protection Agency doesn't, is a non-greenwashing. There's no marketing out of it. It's either you have the certification or you don't. And with CitroTech being the first and only fire retardant that has been, recognized by the Environmental Protection Agency under the EPA Safer Choice program, it provides a significant validation of the technology, being able to go out into the environment. But on top of that, you have other certifications that are, the Underwriters Laboratory, UL, has a thing called Green Guard Gold. And that's another thing that says, hey, the smoke or the vapors or the toxins coming off, those are at the lowest level as well. You then go towards ASTM certifications, ASTM E84. So when you come in and you present all of these things, it really provides credibility that isn't about marketing, it's about fact-based analysis.
Okay, okay. So Wes, so if you look at the cities, cities are expanding into high risk wildland urban interfaces where people can't even get insurance. Can built-in fire protection be the key to making these communities insurable again?
Yeah, I think that's a great question around insurance and where CitroTech can help even single family homes become more insurable at the wildland urban interface. I think we will start to build entire communities different. I think homeowners that are making decisions between, what kind of faucets do they want, or would they rather have their home Class A fire rated in this beautiful area, I think are going to start choosing to have CitroTech treated lumber and building materials used. I think we're also looking at commercial multifamily homes. When we look at how do we build multifamily homes or commercial housing better, I think we will start to reduce insurance around builders' risk. If you're building a $200 million commercial apartment complex or a major community with lumber and building materials, I think CitroTech will start to become a standard for
Okay.
those building materials. So all the way from commercial and large multifamily housing down to single family homes, I think the CitroTech lumber will help the insurability from everything from builder's risk to individual homeowners. And if you have to self-insure, say you're at the far end of the spectrum where insurance companies won't even insure your home, I think it becomes almost a no-brainer. You start to say, I have to protect myself because
Right.
I don't even have insurance. And so CitroTech becomes everything from how you build the house to the sprinkler system on the outside that sprays
Right.
CitroTech, the CitroSafe
Right.
systems. Um, I think insurability and utilizing CitroTech will become very important.
Right. Right. Let's talk about global challenges and the future ahead. So with ongoing geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, how is CitroTech insulating its production and raw material supplying sourcing from global logistics shocks?
Good question around, I mean, the nice part about being able to grow your fire retardant, because it comes from plants and fruits and vegetables and things like that, is that you can have a domestic supply chain pretty much anywhere in the world. We're not mining the product. What people maybe miss sometimes as a chemical is something like phosphate-based retardants are mined. We have to dig them out of the ground, and then we're dumping fertilizer. Phosphates are a fertilizer.
Right.
So funny enough, in other supply chains, we're looking at global fertilizer supply chains, and what's on fertilizer is on a boat stuck somewhere in the Middle East or coming in from Asia or somewhere else, versus being able to have, we have plants that can make our product in Illinois and Iowa, here in the United States. That's a good domestic supply chain.
Okay.
Um, we also can get it from outside the United States. Obviously, it's a global supply chain for our product. Um, so I don't think we have as much worry around could we manufacture enough CitroTech. There's plenty of excess grain that we could ferment or
Right.
neutralize into CitroTech, and we're working with some of the largest, biggest players globally to talk to us about manufacturing. Um, and so I think as we think about supply chains, the phosphates, I think we will start to replace phosphate-based solutions especially for wildfire prevention, wildfire protection, and especially something we've talked about today is the lumber wood products, the Hexion CitroTech joint venture. Um, you know, it has been difficult. Why do we use borates and why do we use things like that? It's because it's the only thing that had worked prior to
Right.
CitroTech really delivering that. So now we can deliver a solution, and I think that's why I think we will start to replace, if you will, the supply chain used for those kind of products with something that we could grow.
Right. So Wes, we talk a lot about lumber, but where else could we see CitroTech technology, you know, utility poles, military sites, or even private homes?
Yeah. So I think as you look down the list of where are fires starting, I think we like you said, we talked a lot about, I think, wood products and lumber and Class A is its own piece. I think we'll continue to look at other products, I'll call it, that CitroTech can soak into and form that barrier. You move into the wildland space and you look at, I say wildland, it's really in the environment. We look at where are fires starting or where do we want to protect assets. People have asked us, could you protect around data centers? And data centers are these very expensive things and very important coming in. I think that yes, of course, we could protect around data centers. We could protect around homes and assets. We could protect in they call them active munition areas. I think the military will start to adopt CitroTech for treating in areas where they're setting off ordnances or
Okay.
explosions.
Okay.
But you think about those are unique areas. We'll start to put it on ingress and egress routes. I think CitroTech will become a standard for, hey, a fire has started in a community over here. Let's get ahead of that. And now we have a product that's safe to spray alongside the road to allow fire personnel to come in and to allow humans to safely evacuate a community. So we start looking at ingress egress routes. We start looking at how could we put CitroTech into drones? Now we could have a quick response, and we have a quick response force built with ground-based applications. So we aren't waiting on airplanes to dump scary red stuff out of the sky. We're saying we could use trucks, we could use water tanks, we could use fertilizer sprayers. We can start to put a safe product out in multiple ways from ground-based equipment, from drones and other pieces, and get ahead. So I think CitroTech will become something that is utilized everything from ahead of a fire to make a fire break. So we say, hey, let's put this CitroTech down as a 50-foot strip. And as the fire moves into it, it dies down. That would be an amazing opportunity. And we can do that from ground-based equipment, not waiting for airplanes. In fact, I don't think many of the, your participants maybe know, you can't have airplanes up, air tankers up. If the wind is too high, they can't be up at night. They can only be up at certain, there's just all these certain criteria. CitroTech can be applied 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, day and night with a product that's safe. I think that's one of the big opportunities for us.
Makes a lot of sense. Yes. So, Wes, what is the biggest red tape challenge you face when trying to introduce a fundamentally new chemical standard to global construction market?
Sure. When you bring something new to the industry and real innovation, a real breakthrough, you have entrenched players, people who have been around 50, 60, 70 years. And as you and I talked about, well, we've always done it this way. And if you're one of those players, you would like for it to always continue to be done that way. So I think there's sometimes you have some headwinds towards bringing new innovation and saying, hey, we can do something different. We can do something that brings a product, whether it's no longer having to pressure treat as much lumber because it's built in or it soaks into the fibers, or, hey, we have a product now that is safe to be applied time after time after time on a roadside, ingress and egress routes, under power lines, along railroad lines. There's entrenched players that have dropped lots of red stuff. What if we prevented fires from starting? That's pretty disruptive. Sometimes innovation brings disruption. And I think CitroTech is in the business of bringing a positive, disruptive product to the market that will help us to be proactive, preventative, prophylactic in those areas that we know are high risk for generating fires, and we'll respond to them more quickly in some of these aspects like I talked about, from ground-based or even drone-based solutions.
Right.
And we may, and in a wonderful way, have less large fires to suppress.
Right. Looking ahead 5 years, what does success look like for the CitroTech and Hexion joint venture?
I think Hexion is really excited about all of the places that CitroTech can go into the market. I think many of their end customers, their partners that they've sold into, the resins for many years. I think success looks like a standard. We become the new standard for how Class A fire-rated lumber and building materials and wood products and even other products are produced in a way that delivers a safe and effective product to the market. I think 5 years from now, it'll be almost, of course, CitroTech is inside of that product. And I think we can get there through this joint venture.
Right. So Wes, this is the last question I have for this session. You scaled Latera Tech and joined Parameter's leadership during a $2 billion listing. So what is the one lesson from that experience that you're applying most aggressively at CitroTech?
Yeah, I think from building Latera Tech as the world's leading wildfire prevention technology, selling that company to Perimeter Solutions, and then being the global head of wildfire prevention, what you figure out is relationships matter. And that's the good part. An individual, it's a personal thing. And I'm able to go back out and, the new head of the U.S. Wildland Firefighting Agency is a friend of mine, or the fire chiefs in California to the utility companies. It's personal because this is such a small industry. I think what you figure out is you're not just selling a product, you're actually delivering a solution to your friends almost. And so coming out of that, now coming in as the CEO at CitroTech, I really feel like I'm going back to my friends. I'm going back to my partners
Right.
to help them with a better solution. I'm bringing a better solution than what I had for something environmentally safe. And you bring solutions to your friends. They actually appreciate you. And I think that's the one thing I've really learned. Our reputation stands before us. Truth comes out. Like you said, it's not greenwashing or marketing, but you bring something that's fact-based, something that's validated with science, and you bring that to your friends. They really actually appreciate you doing that.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. You're proving that high performance building materials and environmental safety don't have to be at odds. The work you're doing in the CitroTech and Hexion joint venture is a game changer for infrastructure resilience. Thank you for joining today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.